Do you know someone who has never fully recovered from a serious loss in life? Or a traumatic experience? And in your own day-to-day life, do you sometimes experience self-doubts, negative thoughts, unreasonable fears, upsets, or irrational behavior? The painful experiences of our past clearly have an effect upon our present behavior. But to what degree and why? What causes the mind to depart from rational thought or behavior?
It's over!
That is the subject of Dianetics. Every moment of your life, your mind is recording everything that's happening to you. Every sight, every sound, every taste, smell, pain, emotion, touch, everything. These recordings form what is called the time track, a consecutive record of all the experiences accumulated throughout your existence. Your mind uses this information to make decisions and solve problems relating to your survival. The better its decisions, the better you survive. Most of this data is stored in your analytical mind, that part of your mind that thinks, remembers, and calculates. But some of your experiences are not recorded into those analytical memory banks. It is a discovery of Dianetics that all of your painful experiences are stored in a previously unknown part of the mind. It's called the reactive mind, and it throws those experiences back at you in an irrational attempt to get you to avoid the same painful thing from happening to you again. Here's a simple and common example. At some point, you've probably gotten sick from eating tainted food. Later in life, if you see or smell or possibly even think about that particular food again, you start to feel a little nauseous. Now, you know that logically, the mere sight or smell or thought of a food can't physically make your body ill because you haven't actually eaten it again, and yet you're experiencing the same sick feeling you had before. This is your reactive mind, making you re-experience the same perceptions it recorded in that earlier incident, in a crude attempt to protect you from what it believes is a dangerous situation. It reacts solely on a stimulus-response basis and below your awareness. The painful experiences hidden in your reactive mind are the cause of your fears, insecurities, negative thoughts, unwanted emotions, and irrational behavior. You have been accumulating these deeply buried experiences throughout your existence. In fact, the most damaging among them occurred before you were born. What would life be like if all of the pain you've experienced no longer affected your abilities, emotions, and behavior? You would think and behave rationally, making the best possible decisions relating to your survival. You would be able to utilize your imagination and creativity to their fullest. You would be confident, more intelligent, and productive, and happier. You would be yourself, free to enjoy life and reach your full potential. In short, your mind would be clear. That is the goal of Dianetics. People achieve this state every day, and so can you. This video is a companion to the book Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health. The video is divided into sections, each building upon your understanding. You're going to learn how your negative experiences are stored and precisely how they affect you, without you knowing it. What's more, Dianetics contains a technology which enables you to locate these hidden incidents, restoring them to your full awareness as memories, freeing you from their negative effects. This video will show you exactly how to do this. But before learning this procedure, you'll need to understand a few things about the mind, and for that matter, life itself. For example, what is life doing? Well, look at a blade of grass that's forced its way up through the sidewalk. What's it doing? And what does this have to do with every living thing, including you? Well, you're about to find out. as you go through life, what's driving you? In other words, what motivates your actions and decisions? What are you ultimately trying to do? What is the goal of life? Well, let's take a look at that blade of grass that's forced its way up through the sidewalk. What's it doing? It's surviving. Just like every living thing, including you. It's as if every living thing is obeying one basic command, and that command is to survive. Survive is the one thing common to all life. Now, it's not a new thought that man is surviving, but it is a new discovery that man is ultimately and only trying to survive. It's the motivating force behind all of your activities. Everything you do, every thought, every decision, and every behavior, everything is driven by your urge to survive. And it's important to understand this because it has everything to do with how your mind thinks, as you'll soon see. Now, survival is not just a matter of being alive one moment and dead the next. You're not only trying to live as long as possible, but as well as possible. So there are degrees of survival. Some people are just barely surviving, while others are surviving at a high level of happiness and accomplishment. How well are you surviving? To understand how well you're surviving, you'd have to know what you're surviving for. Now, you might think you're surviving only for yourself. Or perhaps you think you're surviving for the sake of sex and reproduction. Or maybe it's for the sake of a group. Or only for mankind. Well, none of these factors alone can explain all your activities. You're actually surviving for all of them.
Dr. Berkeley.
So your basic thrust to survive can be subdivided into 4 thrusts, 4 urges towards survival. In Dianetics, these are called the 4 dynamics. A dynamic, in this sense, is the urge to survive along a certain course. For example, the first dynamic is your urge to reach the highest potential of survival for yourself. It covers the general field of food, clothing, and shelter, personal ambition, and your individual purpose. The second dynamic is your thrust toward potential immortality through children, and includes all sexual activity as well as the creation and rearing of children. The third dynamic is your urge to survive through groups, as a member of the group or for the survival of the group itself. This includes the group you work with, or any clubs or teams you belong to. Even the country you live in is a group. The fourth dynamic is your urge to survive for mankind, or the urge of all mankind to survive. If you're operating at your optimum, you would be seeking to survive as best as possible along all 4 of your dynamics. But if you're not surviving well in one or more of these areas of your life, then you're ultimately not going to be surviving well in general.
Have any idea how much this mistake is going to cost the company? Do you?
You need a strong dynamic thrust to battle and beat life's obstacles in your pursuit of happiness and success.
Why can't you get yourself a regular job, huh?
And you need rational solutions for problems that threaten to lessen your potential to survive.
He's done today.
If you were functioning at your absolute optimum, your thrust would be very strong. A person who is cleared of the effects of his reactive mind operates in this manner. His solutions for the problems he faces are rational and survival-oriented, because nothing is throwing off his computations.
We can do this, people! Good work, guys, good work!
But when the reactive mind enters irrational information into those calculations, irrational thoughts and decisions result. You find yourself behaving in ways that hurt some or all of your dynamics. In this way, your urge to survive actually ends up hurting your survival. That's because your reactive mind thinks very differently than your analytical mind does. In fact, there are actually 3 kinds of thought, as you are about to see. There's an old saying that to err is human. But in fact, that's not true. Because the part of your mind that analyzes information to make decisions and solve problems is actually incapable of error. Think of your analytical mind as a computing machine. But it's not just any computer. It's a perfect computer. It never makes a mistake. Your very survival depends upon it always being right. But its solutions are only as good as the data that it computes with. When the reactive mind enters hidden, irrational information into your calculations, you compute or react in an irrational or aberrated manner. The word aberration means a departure from rational thought or behavior. Basically, it means to err, to make mistakes.
Oh my God! Please don't throw that! Please! Please don't throw my guitar, Morgan! My God! Why did you throw my guitar, Morgan?
Your analytical mind doesn't know its calculations are being corrupted by this irrational data. In fact, it doesn't even know the data exists. That's because during those moments in your life that contain some degree of pain, your analytical mind shuts down in an effort to protect itself, like any sensitive machine would. At that point, your reactive mind immediately takes over and starts recording. This is a cruder, more rugged part of the mind, constructed to withstand the shock of pain. But these incidents aren't memories as we think of them. The experiences recorded in the reactive mind are called engrams. They're like movies, except they contain all your perceptions: sight, sound,
Are you okay?
smell, taste, and sensation, including everything people are saying around you during the incident.
Came out of nowhere.
Engrams are complete recordings, down to the last accurate detail, of every perception present in a moment of pain and unconsciousness. The pain can be physical pain, like when you're injured, or emotional pain, like the shock you get when you experience a loss. The unconsciousness could be total, such as when you're knocked out from an accident, or when you have anesthesia. Or it could be times when your awareness is dulled, such as when you're sick, injured, or when your body is poisoned, such as with alcohol or drugs. Now let's take another look at the example of getting sick from eating tainted food, which acts as a poison to your body. It's an engram. When you later find yourself in a situation that is in some way similar to an engram stored in your reactive mind tries to get you to avoid the same painful thing from happening to you again. But it does so in a very crude and irrational way. That's because your reactive mind doesn't think the same way your analytical mind does. Your analytical mind thinks rationally. It compares things and sees the differences between them. For example, if you were asked to organize these blocks by shape and color, your analytical mind would have no problem. That's because it sees the differences between them. It thinks in differences. This is analytical thought. Now, you know analytically that an egg you eat today is obviously not the same exact egg that made you sick when you ate it 3 years ago. That's rational thinking. But the reactive mind is so crude it can't differentiate between things. If asked to organize these blocks, it would think every block is identical to every other block. It thinks anything is equal to anything else. This is called reactive thought. To the reactive mind, if a bad egg once made you very ill, all eggs you eat after that will also make you ill. This is because to the reactive mind, they're all identical. It can't tell the difference between the two eggs, or between now and then. But this goes even further. To the reactive mind, any piece of information in a specific engram is identical to every other piece of information in the same experience. For instance, let's say someone was playing the tuba while you were sick from eating an egg. To your reactive mind, every egg is identified with every other egg, and all eggs are identified with the feeling of being sick to your stomach. And feeling sick to your stomach is identified with the sound of a tuba. So later in life, if you hear a tuba playing, you could start to feel nauseous. Your analytical mind will rationalize that you feel sick for some other reason. This is called justified thought, the excuses you make to explain irrational behavior. But in fact, your reactive mind, acting below your level of awareness, is turning on the same pain from the original Engram to stupidly warn you to stay away from that tuba, because it's identified tubas with getting sick to your stomach. In Dianetics, this reactive type of thinking is referred to as anything equals anything equals anything, or A equals A equals A for short. In lower levels of life, this reactive behavior is a survival activity of a sort. When a fish is injured, his reactive mind records all the perceptions regarding the injury. And whenever these later appear in his environment, his mind will make him run away. But in a human being, this survival mechanism has long outlived its usefulness, but it's still there. What if it's not merely an egg that you're being irrationally warned against? What if it's someone you know? Or something you do?
No, I'm fine.
Or something you want to achieve? Your reactive mind operates solely on a stimulus-response basis. It's attempting to aid your survival, but its wild errors are actually just suppressing your efforts to survive. To understand how the reactive mind can command you without you knowing it, let's take a look at what happens during hypnosis. Now, Dianetics is not hypnotism, but examining how hypnosis works will demonstrate that there is a part of the mind below your awareness which contains data that can control you.
Right on this, okay?
When a hypnotist installs a positive suggestion in an unconscious subject, he can make that person unknowingly act irrationally.
Good.
Anyone who has been hypnotized has been placed in a state of partial unconsciousness.
You're getting sleepy. Sleep.
Once in that state, the hypnotist installs a command that will later control the person's thoughts or behavior. The person has no idea this command exists, but something he later sees or hears will unknowingly trigger that command.
When I touch my tie, you'll remove your coat. When I let go of my tie, you'll put your coat back on. You will forget that I've given you this order.
This person will now follow that hidden command without ever being aware that he's doing so.
So we're gonna start here? Oh, yes, absolutely. We're gonna start right away. I just wanted to see, how do you feel?
A bit warm in here.
Notice that his analytical mind is trying to explain or justify his irrational behavior.
I thought you said you were a bit warm.
Now I'm cold.
The analytical mind must always be right. When it's faced with irrational behavior, it will justify it.
You know, when you were asleep, you were given an order. Do you remember what that order was?
No.
No.
Here we have someone who is at first acting sanely, is then given a hypnotic command, and then temporarily acts irrationally. No matter how foolish the command is, he'll carry it out one way or another. For instance, he could have been told that every time he sees a taxi cab, he's being pestered by a swarm of mosquitoes. He could have been told to sneeze whenever he hears the word
Rob?
Sorry.
He can be told that all women adore him, and he'll believe it's true.
You're just playing hard to get, that's all.
Any suggestion will operate like a direct order without his being aware of it, and will make him act irrationally, until the suggestion is released by the hypnotist.
See, what happens when you were hypnotized, I gave you a command that when I touched my tie, you'd take off your coat, and when I let go of my tie, you'd put your coat back on. Anyway, you get it?
Yes.
Okay, no hard feelings, huh?
Just like a hypnotist installs commands in his subject, engrams install hidden commands in the reactive mind. The words and phrases heard during moments of unconsciousness are faithfully recorded into your reactive mind along with their pain. And like hypnotic suggestions, these recordings can later control the way you think, the way you act, and the way you feel, without you knowing it. Next, we'll take a closer look at one woman's engram and see exactly what happens when it becomes reactivated later in her life,
You're always messing things up.
and why. An engram contains many things: pain, and unconsciousness, and all the perceptions of the incident. But by far the most damaging of these are the spoken words recorded when you're unconscious.
What the hell do you think you're doing out there? You can't relax. You gotta push yourself. You gotta push, 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 and never let up for a second.
Like hypnotic suggestions, these recordings can be triggered by something in the environment and cause you to think or behave irrationally.
I got it.
Dave, relax, man. For God's sakes, it's supposed to be a friendly game.
Here's an example of a woman who receives an engram containing spoken language.
Hey, don't walk away from me. I'm talking to you.
This woman is knocked unconscious. Her analytical mind has shut down, and her reactive mind is now recording everything that is happening to and around her. She is told that she's a faker,
You're such a faker.
that she's no good,
You are no good. You hear me? No good.
that she's always messing things up,
You don't messing things up.
and that she's always changing her mind.
Who's changing your mind? I'm sick of it. I'm so sick of it.
The recording of this engram contains a running record of all her perceptions. In addition to the spoken words, the engram also contains the sound and pain of the kick,
Get up.
the feel of the floor, the sounds of the chair overturning and objects being thrown to the floor, the sound of a motorcycle passing by on the street below, and a faucet running in the bathroom, as well as the smell of the man attacking her and the tone and emotion in his voice.
Hear me?
The fact that she's unconscious is also included in that engram, along with all the other perceptions. To her reactive mind, the pain of the kick is identified with the overturning chair, which is identified with the sound of the passing motorcycle, which is identified with the running faucet, which is identified with the fact that she is a faker, that she is no good and changes her mind, which is identified with the voice tones and emotions of the man.
You're messing things up.
Every single perception in this engram equals every other perception in this engram. This engram now lies hidden in her reactive mind, and it can lie there dormant for a very long time until something activates it. What causes this activation? In the future, when this woman is tired or stressed out, and her present environment contains enough similarities to the elements found in the engram, that engram will become active. For example, if one evening the faucet were running and she heard the sound of a motorcycle passing by outside, and at the same time her husband was yelling at someone in a similar tone of voice as he used in the original incident,
What do you mean he's gonna back out?
the engram would become activated. This is called a key-in. A key-in is the first time an engram gets activated. She might experience a pain in her leg where she was kicked earlier. The pain is her reactive mind's stupid attempt to warn her that she is in a dangerous place, that she should leave.
Sweetheart, you ready? It's almost time to go.
And the words spoken in the engram
Who's changing your mind?
will become commands in the present, and she will change her mind.
No, just go without me, honey. I'm really tired.
What?
I just don't want to go.
And although her husband was accusing her of faking her injury at that moment,
You're such a faker.
Her reactive mind will take that comment very literally.
I don't want to go there because they think I'm a faker or I feel like a faker. Just, I'm really tired.
That's your problem. You never support.
This woman thinks she's made these decisions rationally. She thinks she's worried about her fight with her husband. She has no idea that she's nervous because her engram has been keyed in. And once keyed in, it can now be easily played back again and again. For example, sometime later when this woman is tired or stressed, she hears a man yelling at someone as a motorcycle passes by. These are re-stimulators, things in her environment that are similar enough to the perceptions in the engram to cause it to become reactivated or re-stimulated. She starts to feel nervous, but she doesn't know why. When her child knocks over a vase, she begins to act out the engram.
You always mess things up.
You're always messing things up.
In other words, she will say and do to her child exactly what her husband said and did to her.
Know that? You're such a faker. You're no good.
This behavior is called dramatization. Dramatization is a replay in the present of something that happened in the past. An engram is simply a recording, like a phonograph record.
Shut the hell up. I don't want to hear another word out of you.
You don't hear it until something causes it to play.
Disrespect.
When an engram gets re-stimulated, the reactive mind merely plays back the recording.
Shut the hell up. I don't want to hear another word out of you.
And you may act exactly like the people contained in that engram,
Just shut the hell up. I don't want to hear another word out of you.
doing and saying exactly the same things that were done and said to you.
Shut the hell up. I don't want to hear another word out of you.
But language isn't the only thing recorded in an engram. There is, among other things, the sensation of pain. After all, you were injured or ill when you received it. So, if the language in an engram gets dramatized, what do you think happens when the recording plays back that pain? Medical history is full of examples of patients whose physical problems seem to have no apparent physical cause. In fact, it's estimated that 70% of all body ills fall into this category known as psychosomatic illness. So what exactly is psychosomatic illness? Well, psycho refers to the mind, and somatic refers to the body. So the term psychosomatic means the mind making the body ill, or illnesses which have been created physically within the body by the mind. And Dianetics has proven that engrams are the cause of all psychosomatic ills. Here's why. This is an engram containing physical pain, an injury to your arm. The pain in your arm is recorded in your reactive mind along with all the other perceptions in the incident. Now, when that engram is later re-stimulated by similar perceptions in your environment, your reactive mind plays back the recording, and the physical pain it contains may appear. In Dianetics, we say the somatic has turned on. The word somatic refers to any pain, sensation, or body condition you experience as a result of engrams. When a somatic turns on, the part of your body which was injured or ill when the engram was received becomes painful or ill again to some degree. Just how many different kinds of psychosomatic illnesses could you have? Well, that depends in part upon all your previous illnesses and injuries, and in part upon how many conditions your body can generate out of the words and phrases contained in your engrams. You see, the language contained in an engram can have a very damaging effect on your body as well as on your mind. As an example, a little girl falls into a pool. In the commotion, someone near her shouts,
She can't breathe.
This phrase is now stored in her reactive mind. Now, the reactive mind interprets the words in its commands quite literally, regardless of what their meaning might have been when they were spoken. So even after she's grown up, this girl suffers from asthma because her reactive mind is literally telling her body that she can't breathe. This is the reactive mind making the body ill. Consider how many combinations of words there are, and you can imagine how much damage these commands can cause. They can alter your senses, make you feel sick in general, or even keep you from healing. That's why many common physical problems such as allergies, ulcers, arthritis, high blood pressure, migraine headaches, chronic skin conditions, and bizarre aches and pains can be traced back to the harmful effects of engrams. Now, if you've lived a relatively accident-free existence, you may think you don't have many engrams. But the fact is, the greatest source of engrams, and the most damaging, comes from a period of your life that you probably don't remember, as you'll see in a moment.
You might think that if you've never had an accident or trauma or surgery of any kind, that you have no engrams. This would be wonderful if it were true, but unfortunately, it's not. Just because you aren't aware of these incidents doesn't mean they don't exist. As a matter of fact, Dianetics has proven that the majority of engrams occur prior to 2 years of age. In fact, birth itself is an engram, and obviously one that everyone has. But the surprising thing is how many engrams are recorded prior to birth. How is that possible? Well, engrams aren't memories as we think of them. They're recordings. In Dianetics, it's theorized that engrams are probably recorded in the cells themselves. After all, they're the things that get injured. In fact, the word engram is a medical term meaning a lasting trace on a cell. In Dianetics, we're only concerned with what works, and this is a workable theory. When cells divide and multiply, they pass on the recordings of all the engrams they've received, including those in the earliest stages of life. You see, an unborn child is not protected by fully formed bones yet, and the womb is a very tight space. So when something strikes him or presses against him too hard, his cells and organs are easily injured, and a prenatal engram is recorded. For example, if mama bumps into something, baby gets knocked unconscious. If mama sneezes, baby gets squashed. If papa becomes passionate, baby feels like he's in a washing machine. When mama gets morning sickness, baby gets an engram. And so it goes. So you see, you could have many prenatal engrams, and each one can cause aberration.
Finally! Where have you been?
Told you I'd be late.
All night. I don't believe it.
Like any engram, everything that is perceived during a prenatal engram is recorded, including all the pains and sounds, the emotions of the people present,
Being ridiculous, I called you.
and everything that everyone is saying.
It is always my fault.
I can't win.
The fact that the unborn baby doesn't understand the meaning of these words doesn't matter. The engram is merely a series of impressions recorded on the cells of his body. When this child has grown, whenever that engram is re-stimulated,
Always my fault.
that recording will be played back, and he most certainly will understand the meaning of those recorded words.
You okay? If we don't get the account, it won't be because we didn't give it our best shot.
No, it'll be my fault. It is always my fault. I can't win.
Of course, he has no idea this engram exists, so he'll justify his behavior. So you see, it's not so much what you have done, but what has been done to you that causes your aberrations. And most of it happened to you before you were born. What is pain? Pain is a warning signal, telling you you're experiencing something that's harmful to your survival. Pain tells you to let go of the hot frying pan, or that there's something very wrong with your knee. Pain is the punishment for the mistakes you make trying to survive.
Do you know what time it is?
And pain is always a warning of loss. If you burn your finger, your body has lost the cells on the surface of that finger. They're dead. The loss of someone or something that's important to your survival is also painful. You feel emotional pain, and that emotional pain causes an unconscious period, just as certainly as if you've been hit with a club. The sudden shock of a loss, such as the death of someone you love, is a form of unconsciousness which reduces your analytical power.
That your husband was killed in action is July 13th.
The analytical mind shuts down to some degree, and a painful emotion engram is received. These painful emotion engrams are caused by sudden losses, such as the departure of someone important to you, the death of a favorite pet, the loss or failure of a job or business, or the sudden loss of your possessions. After losses such as these, you may not feel like you have as much vitality as you had before. Why? Well, you're alive, so there must be a force or flow of something which keeps you alive. What is this energy, this stuff of life? Call it life force. Think of it as the gas that fills a hot air balloon. The more you have, the stronger your thrust to survive is, and the more energetic, active, and happier you are. The less you have, the less vibrant and alive you are, and the weaker your thrust to survive becomes. So, where does your life force go? Engrams such as these capture your life force, making it unavailable to you. The less life force you have, the less free your emotions are, and you're left feeling sadder, deader, and less alive. As you live forward from childhood and suffer loss after loss, more and more of your life force becomes sealed up, little by little, in your reactive mind.
Do what you always do, which is walk away!
As your enthusiasm for life lessens, so does your potential to survive. The glory and color of childhood seems to vanish. But this beauty and sensitivity to life isn't gone. It's just trapped within you. Release this trapped life force, and you experience a renewed vigor and enthusiasm for life. So there is clearly a connection between life force and your emotions. The more life force available to you, the happier you are in life. How high can your emotions go? And how low? What if you could chart your emotions on a scale? Where would you fall on such a scale? Well, you're going to find out. As you know, you're trying to survive as well as possible for as long as possible. And the purpose of your mind is to make sure you attain that goal. If you make a mistake that threatens your survival, you're punished with pain. So your mind tries to get you to avoid pain.
Your analytical mind does this rationally. Your reactive mind does this irrationally. Now, if pain is the punishment for failure, what's the reward for success? It's pleasure. Just as you're thrust away from pain, there's a force within you that thrusts you toward pleasure. And pleasure is absolutely vital to your survival. It's as necessary to living as a beating heart. Pleasure is your reward for pursuing and achieving the goals you have that enhance your survival. The more obstacles you overcome on the way to your goals, the happier you are and the better you survive. On this graph, your urge to survive would be an arrow that thrusts away from pain and toward pleasure. We call this thrust the survival dynamic. You need a strong dynamic thrust to overcome the things in your environment that try to suppress your survival. These suppressors thrust down, threatening your survival in some way, and your analytical mind thrusts up with solutions. The degree to which your mind is able to overcome life's suppressors determines how well you'll persist in life.
Good work, everybody. We can do this.
And some people have a stronger thrust than others. Your potential to survive can be found to fall somewhere on this graph, which is divided into zones. The higher the zone, the stronger your dynamic thrust and the better you survive. For example, in the fourth zone, you'd be able to overcome those suppressors. You'd have an excellent survival potential and you'd be enjoying life. But in zone 0, the suppressors would seem to be too great to overcome, and you'd be barely surviving. This is the zone of no hope. These zones also form a scale of emotional tones. As your survival potential rises and falls on the scale, so too do your emotions. In the fourth zone, you would be enthusiastic and would enjoy life. Zone 3 is one of general happiness and well-being. Zone 2 is boredom, a level of bearable existence. Zone 1 is anger. And Zone 0 is the tone of apathy. Good news, successes, and pleasures raise your emotional tone toward happiness. Bad news, failures, losses, and pain will bring your emotional tone down. Your emotions can go down the scale for a few minutes and then go back up. Or they can go down the scale for 10 years and not go back up. If you've suffered too many losses, too much pain, you tend to become fixed at some lower level of the scale and tend to stay there. So engrams act as suppressors to your survival. They suppress your intelligence by feeding irrational information into your analytical mind. And they suppress your dynamics by trapping your life force and lowering your emotional tone. Engrams prevent you from reaching your full potential. If you could eliminate the effects of all the physical pain and losses in your life, then logically, you'd be happier and more intelligent, and you'd have the vitality and thrust you need to reach your full potential. But how can you find something that's hidden from your view? Well, there's a method of thinking and remembering that man didn't know he had. With Dianetics, you're going to locate and remove the engrams hidden in your reactive mind so they no longer affect you. But to understand just how that could be done, let's take a closer look at how these experiences are stored. You know that every moment of your life, your mind is recording everything that's happening to you. The times when your analytical mind is recording, plus the times when your reactive mind is recording, form a complete sequence of the events in your life. This consecutive record of your past is called the time track. The time track is your system of filing all of your experiences according to the time they were received,
from the beginning of your existence to now, including those incidents that you're not consciously aware of. You see, when an engram is received, your analytical mind is shut down by the physical pain and emotion. And since it's shut down, it doesn't know that the engram's data is coming in. So you're not consciously aware that the data exists.
There's no time!
Now, when an engram gets restimulated, part of your analytical power is shut down as part of the commands of the engram. This causes you to feel nervous or frightened or sleepy, dull, or confused. And the source of this remains hidden from your view. But in Dianetics, it was discovered that you can be sent back, wide awake, to any experience on your time track and examine everything that was recorded at the time of the event. This isn't memory in the way you remember something. It's different. For example, let's say you once won a swimming race. Now you could simply recall the fact that you won the race. That would be remembering. Or you could concentrate on the matter and again see the other swimmers in the pool. You could hear all the sounds of the race. Feel the pressure of the goggles on your face and smell the chemicals in the pool. You could feel the texture and temperature of the water against your skin, the rhythm and motion of your body, the quick pace of your beating heart, the ache in your shoulders, and the emotions you felt when you won. This method of thinking is called returning. Returning is the method used in Dianetics to go back or return to moments in your past while you're wide awake and re-experience the perceptions recorded in that incident.
I hear shots being fired.
Corbin!
Guys are shouting.
Corbin!
I hear someone yelling.
There's no time!
There's no time.
To do this, you sit in a comfortable chair with a friend who acts as the auditor. The word auditor means one who listens and computes. The auditor guides you through the precise steps of the Dianetics procedure, which you'll learn in Chapter 12. Her purpose is to find those engrams and return you to them.
Let's go to the earliest moment of pain or discomfort.
The auditor works with a system called the file clerk to find these incidents. Now, obviously, there isn't a little man in your mind handing out data, but your mind operates as if there were. The auditor asks your file clerk for information, and suddenly, you're in possession of the whole file. For example, if the auditor asks for the last time you saw a movie, the file clerk will hand out the movie, the date, how you felt, all your perceptions, the plot of the movie, the weather that night, everything that was present and connected with the movie. The auditor and your file clerk are a team. The auditor takes whatever incident the file clerk finds and returns you to it.
Begin at the beginning of the incident and recount it.
I'm about 7 years old. She has you re-experience the incident several times through until it's relieved or erased.
Go back to the beginning and go over it again.
Well, I'm in my room.
Go back to the
Erased simply means that it's gone from your reactive mind and is now filed in your analytical memory banks. In other words, it's now just a memory without pain or force over you.
Yeah, that was just incredible.
Now, you might think that you can return to these incidents by yourself, but that's not the case. Just as your analytical power is dimmed whenever an engram is restimulated,
You're always messing things up!
it's also shut down to some degree whenever you are returned to that engram in auditing.
You hear me? No good!
You may speak or act in a modified version of the engram
I think I'm messing this up.
and experience the same emotions that the engram contains.
Messing things up. I'm no good at this. You hear me?
So in that moment, the force of your reactive mind is greater than you are. You lack enough persistence, enough dynamic thrust to persevere.
I understand.
But the auditor is not affected by your engrams. She has her full analytical power and a strong dynamic thrust. So together, the two of you are greater than the force of your reactive mind. When you join forces against it, it gives up its engrams. Once all the painful experiences have been cleared from your reactive mind, your aberrations will be gone. you'd experience a renewed vigor and enthusiasm for life, and you'd be surviving at a very high level across your dynamics. You would be the best of who you really are. Rational, confident, more intelligent, creative, and productive. Life should be enjoyed, and a person who is cleared of their engrams would enjoy living to its fullest. That is the goal of Dianetics. But to reach that goal, you have to understand how auditing works. Dianetic therapy is called auditing. The procedure used in auditing enables you to contact those hidden moments of pain and eliminate their harmful influence over you. All therapy is done by traveling on your time track. Everything you've ever experienced is filed there, in sequence, according to the time it happened. And even though it seems like the moments containing pain and unconsciousness are missing from your time track, they are there, and they can be located. In fact, these engramic events become linked to one another in your reactive mind, and that connection helps you locate them. You see, engrams actually form chains of incidents that have something similar in common. For a simple example, let's say you once were hit by a bike. And years earlier, you had a bad spill on a motorcycle. And back when you were a child, you were injured from a fall off your bike. And even earlier, you suffered a prenatal engram containing the word bike.
Sweetheart, what happened? I tripped over the bike.
To your reactive mind, these engrams would form a chain, a series of incidents which contain bikes as part of their content. Now, all engrams also contain a harmful energy or force called charge. This painful or emotional charge is what gives an engram its force and power over you. When incidents form a chain, the later ones contain their own charge plus the force of all earlier incidents on that chain as well. In other words, the later incidents get their strength from the earlier ones. Auditing takes the charge out of these incidents. So when you're auditing a chain of engrams, you want to find the earliest incident on that chain, because that's the one that's holding the other ones in place and giving them their force. That first incident is called the basic. The basic on a chain is always your goal, and that can be a very, very early engram. Here's why. Think of the reactive mind as an upside-down pyramid. The upper part of this pyramid is made up of the most recent incidents on your time track. The lower part contains the earliest ones. The cement that holds this pyramid together is all the physical pain and painful emotion you've ever recorded. Now, a chain could consist of incidents that all contain the same kind of pain or injury. Or they might contain the same person, or the same word or phrase, or a similar smell, or similar sounds or voices, and so on. So you can see that many chains could lead down into the prenatal area of your time track, to the first time that pain or phrase or voice appears in an incident. Therefore, the goal in every auditing session is to get into this bottom area, contacting and removing the earliest engrams you can find. Sometimes you have to go back into the later area to find recent incidents, especially painful emotion engrams. Reducing these later incidents will help uncover the earlier ones hidden beneath them. In addition, these losses will contain trapped life force. Releasing this charge weakens the reactive mind and reinforces your ability to find more engrams and carry on in life. In fact, the release of this emotional charge contained in losses is so important that once the majority of this emotional stress is discharged from your reactive mind, you reach a state known as release. A Dianetic release is a person who has been freed from his major anxieties or illnesses. At the very bottom of this pyramid is the earliest moment of pain and unconsciousness. This is known as basic, the first engram on the first chain of engrams, and that engram must be found if you're going to become clear. Once basic has been erased, the remaining engrams will be much easier to locate and erase. Now, these incidents aren't actually erased. They've just shifted and are now found filed as experiences in your analytical memory banks. In other words, they are now memories, without any pain or charge or force over you. When all the physical pain and painful emotion from your life has been released, the reactive mind will be cleared of its engrams. You'll be restored to your optimum state. You will be you. You will be clear. And the next chapter will show you exactly how to begin. Now you're going to learn the basic Dianetics procedure.
Yeah?
You and a friend can team up and take turns auditing each other. This is called co-auditing. The person receiving the auditing is called a pre-clear because he hasn't yet been cleared of the engrams in his reactive mind.
Okay, are you ready to get started?
Yeah.
Great. And have you rested
The person who guides the pre-clear through the procedure is the auditor.
Good, good. And have you eaten properly?
You should strive to be the best auditor you can be. You'll expect nothing less from the person who will be auditing you. There's a definite code of conduct that every auditor must follow, not just to be polite, but because it's necessary for auditing to work. It's called the Auditor's Code, and it outlines the attitude you should have toward your pre-clear. For auditing to work, an auditor must be trustworthy. So keep your auditing appointments and be there on time.
Have a seat. Thanks. Yeah.
And by the way, a trustworthy auditor never reveals any confidential matter concerning the pre-clear. An auditor is at all times kind, considerate, patient, and persistent.
No, I'm telling you, it can't be true. It's just my imagination.
Well, what do you see?
Never criticize or get angry with the person you're auditing. Keep your opinions to yourself.
You know, I think I'm tired of running this engram. I think I'd like to run the time when I got burned.
I understand. There may be more in this one. Go back to the beginning.
Follow the Auditor's Code. You'll find it in your Dianetics book, in the chapter entitled The Auditor's Role. Study it well, because the moment you violate the code, your auditing session will run into trouble. As an auditor, your job is to listen and to compute any trouble your pre-clear is having, and to help him get those engrams.
Or it really hurts to think about it.
I understand, but the only way out of it is through it. Please continue.
Now let's look at the 10 basic steps of a Dianetics auditing session in detail so you can see exactly how it's done. These are covered in the book Dianetics in Chapter 5 of the Therapy section. The steps are also laid out on a card listing out what to say and do at each step. The auditor can refer to this during the auditing session. It might help to follow along with the card as we go through this demonstration. In Step 1 of the procedure, the auditor assures the pre-clear that he will know everything that happens.
You will remain aware of everything which goes on. You will be able to remember everything that happens here. You can pull yourself out of anything which you get into if you don't like it.
Okay.
Good.
The second step is to have the pre-clear close his or her eyes.
Close your eyes. Good.
This puts the pre-clear into a state of light concentration called reverie. The pre-clear is simply putting his attention on himself and the auditor. In the third step, the auditor makes sure that anything she says during the session won't accidentally re-stimulate the pre-clear or act as a command over him at a later time. So the auditor makes an agreement with the pre-clear to cancel this from occurring.
In the future, when I utter the word canceled, everything which I have said to you while you're in a therapy session will be canceled and will have no force with you. Any suggestion I have made to you will be without force when I say the word canceled. Do you understand?
Yes.
Good.
In the fourth step, the auditor returns the pre-clear to a period in the past. Tell the pre-clear to go to the earliest moment of pain or discomfort.
Let's go to the earliest moment of pain or discomfort.
Okay, I think I got one.
Good.
Now we come to the fifth step, working with the file clerk to get data. The auditor has the pre-clear re-experience the incident from beginning to end, describing it as he goes along. Tell the pre-clear to begin at the beginning and recount it.
Begin at the beginning and recount it.
Recount simply means to describe what you're re-experiencing.
I'm about 7 years old, and I'm sick. I'm really sick. I'm out of it. In my room, in bed, and I'm coughing.
Notice that the pre-clear is describing everything as though it's happening right now in the present. This tells you he's returned to it, and not merely remembering it.
And my mom comes in and she feels my head.
When you want the pre-clear to keep on going, say, continue.
Please continue.
Mom is trying to feed me something, I don't know what.
All right.
Ask the pre-clear questions to get data. Questions like, what do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? Or what does she say? Will keep his attention on the scene and rolling through it.
What do you see?
She's holding a bowl and a spoon. That's all there is, that's all I'm getting.
All right.
In step 6, you reduce all engrams contacted so that no charge remains. Charge is the harmful energy stored in the engram. The auditor sees to it that all the painful or emotional energy in the engram is discharged. This is done by returning the pre-clear back over the incident many times until it no longer affects him painfully or emotionally, or until it seems to disappear. Have the pre-clear go back to the beginning of the incident and go over it again, picking up whatever additional data he can contact.
Go back to the beginning and go over it again. Pick up whatever additional data you can contact.
Okay, I'm sick in bed. Hot and really out of it. And, my mom comes in.
The auditor is listening for new information coming out of the incident.
You look terrible.
She says you look terrible.
As long as new data is coming out, the incident is reducing and should continue to be run.
She's trying to feed me something. It's soup. But the smell, it makes me even sicker. I don't want it. I don't know, I'm hot.
The pre-clear feels hot. He's re-experiencing a physical condition contained in the engram. This is called a somatic.
I understand. Please continue.
That's it.
Okay. Go back to the beginning and go over it again. Pick up whatever additional data you can contact.
Well, I'm sick, and I'm huddled underneath the covers.
Each time the pre-clear goes through the incident, its negative influence over him is reduced.
She's saying...
You're so hot.
You're so hot.
You look terrible.
You look terrible. And she's saying...
I want you to have some soup.
Have some soup, but the soup just makes me feel sicker.
Just a little.
You know, to this day, I hate the smell of soup.
I understand. Please continue.
I tell her I'm not hungry, but she keeps saying just a bit. I don't know, I'm just lying there sick in bed.
Okay. What's the tactile on this?
Tactile refers to the sense of touch. The auditor is asking him to describe anything his body is touching.
I feel my covers.
Okay. What do you see?
Oh, I see my toys. My fish tank.
Good. What do you hear?
The gurgling sound of the fish tank.
Okay. Please continue.
That's it. I'm still kind of hot.
I understand. Go back to the beginning and go over it again. Pick up whatever additional data you can contact.
Okay, I'm in my room.
Run the pre-clear through the incident as many times as it takes to bring him up the tone scale to being cheerful about it. When the pre-clear is bright and cheerful about running that incident, the engram has erased.
That's why
However, sometimes the pre-clear doesn't become cheerful about it despite many recountings.
I'm still kind of hot.
I understand. Go back to the beginning and go over it again.
Therefore, if he isn't uncovering any new data about an incident, even though he's recounted it many times, and he's not becoming more cheerful about it, then there's an earlier moment of a similar nature that must be found.
That's all there is.
As you've seen, engrams are in chains. In other words, there's a series of incidents of similar types. At the very bottom of every chain is the basic or first engram on the chain. This basic incident holds the later ones more or less in place, preventing them from being reduced. So the basic engram of the chain is always your goal.
I don't think I'm getting anything new here.
All right.
Therefore, if an incident doesn't reduce after many recountings, ask, is there an earlier incident like this?
Is there an earlier incident like this?
If the pre-clear says yes,
I get the sense that there is, yes.
have him go to the earlier incident and recount it, starting at step 5. Tell the pre-clear to begin at the beginning and recount it.
Begin at the beginning and recount it.
Well, I hear a voice. I'm not sure what he's saying. Something about looking terrible. I think. I'm not sure.
Okay. What do you see?
I don't see anything, just blackness.
Okay. What do you hear?
Besides the voice, I hear coughing, gagging, something like that. I'm getting a headache.
I understand. Please continue.
That's it, really. That's all.
Okay. Go back to the beginning and go over it again. Pick up whatever additional data you can contact.
I hear voices, a man's voice.
What does he say?
Well, he says, he's saying, "You look terrible. Are you okay?" And a woman says, "No, I'm sick. I'm so sick." And I hear coughing, gagging. I get the sense that she's crying. Look, I can't do this.
It's all right. What's the somatic?
I feel pressure, like I'm being compressed. I feel pressure on my head right here. But I don't see anything. Look, I can't do this.
You're doing fine. Please continue.
When an engram is contacted with auditing, the pre-clear will dramatize its contents, just like he did when it was restimulated in life. He'll speak and act in a modified version of the engram. So just remember, those are engrams talking, not your pre-clear.
I can't do this. I can't do this.
It's important to know that the pre-clear himself never resists auditing. The only thing which resists are the engrams. So if the pre-clear swears or moans or weeps or pleads,
I can't do this.
Don't quit. Don't get angry. Just follow the auditor's code and kindly persist.
What do you hear?
I hear coughing, gagging. The woman... Wait, that's my mother. That's her voice. Oh, this must be a prenatal.
Okay. What does she say?
I can't do this. Wait, that's what she's saying. She's saying I can't do this. Oh, I bet this is morning sickness. She's crying. She's saying, I hate this. I hate being pregnant. Look, how much longer will this go on? My head hurts. I've had enough for today. Let's end the session now, okay?
I understand, but there may be more in it. Go back to the beginning and go over it again. Pick up whatever additional data you can contact.
An auditor is courageous. Never end the session, leaving engrams half reduced just because he asks you to. If the pre-clear is in the middle of an engram, the only way out of it is to go through it as many times as it takes.
She says, how much longer? How much longer will this go on?
As long as new data is still coming out, the incident is reducing and should continue to be run.
I hear my dad say, you're the one who wanted to have kids. That's all, except my headache's starting to go away.
Good. Go back to the beginning and go over it again. Pick up whatever additional data you can contact.
Okay. I hear my dad saying, you look terrible, are you okay?
Continue to run the incident again and again until the pre-clear is cheerful about it.
Pick up whatever additional data you can contact.
When the incident no longer affects him either painfully or emotionally, and there's no more data to run, the engram has erased. The pre-clear will have come up the tone scale and be bright and cheerful and perhaps laughing about it.
That's why whenever
The engram is technically not erased. It's just been refiled in his analytical mind as a memory and will no longer have any influence over him.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a good time to end off. To end the session, go on to step 7. The auditor now has to tell the pre-clear to come to present time.
Come to present time.
Okay.
You want to be sure the pre-clear is in present time, so in step 8, you ask him.
Are you in present time?
Yes.
Okay.
The auditor now has to give the pre-clear the word canceled, so that nothing in this session will act as a command or suggestion to him at a later time. This is step 9.
Canceled.
The auditor should now restore the pre-clear's awareness of his surroundings. This is step 10 and is the final step of the procedure.
When I count from 5 to 1 and snap my fingers, you will feel alert. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
That's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There you have it. That was a Dianetics auditing demonstration shown with all its parts. In future sessions, other incidents are taken up and handled, one by one.
Everything which I've said to you while you are in a therapy session will be canceled and will have no force with you. Any suggestion I have made to you will be without force when I say the word canceled. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Good. Let's go to the earliest moment of pain or discomfort.
Okay. There was a time that I was climbing a tree.
Good. Begin at the beginning and recount it.
About 7 years old.
Just find the earliest engrams available and erase them.
I slip and fall out of the tree.
Keep in mind, your primary goal is to locate and erase basic, the earliest moment of pain and unconsciousness. So in every session, you try to reach it until you're certain you have found it. Once it's been erased, the remaining engrams will be much easier to locate and erase.
Trying to get a foothold with my right foot.
To get the best results in auditing, you should always be well fed before starting a Dianetics session. An auditor should never audit someone who is hungry or improperly fed. A good protein diet will help your auditing go smoother, as will vitamin B1. Auditing apparently reduces the amount of B1 in your system, so it's strongly recommended that you take vitamin B1 when you're getting auditing. You should also get plenty of rest. An auditor shouldn't audit someone who's tired, or audit them late at night when they would normally be sleeping. Drugs and alcohol interfere with your ability to locate or run engrams, making auditing difficult. So don't drink alcohol for 24 hours before auditing. Waiting a week after taking drugs or aspirin will improve your ability to handle engrams in session. Be sure to keep your auditing appointments and schedule your sessions regularly. Auditing every day is not necessary, but auditing every 2 or 3 days is desirable and produces the best results. As you progress through auditing, you'll find yourself rising up the tone scale, steadily improving. In fact, the change will be noticeable from week to week. When all the pain and sorrow have been erased, your reactive mind will be cleared. People achieve this state every day, and so can you. The basic personality of the pre-clear, the person himself, wants to conquer his engrams. But he can't audit himself, and that's a proven fact. Auditing is a cooperative effort. Here's why. A pre-clear's analytical mind is shut down whenever he reaches an engram, so he can't pursue it and recount it without the help of an auditor.
Okay. What do you hear?
Plus, in that moment, the force of his reactive mind is greater than he is. He lacks enough persistence, enough dynamic thrust to persevere.
I understand.
But the auditor isn't affected by the pre-clear's engrams. She has the full use of her analytical power and a strong dynamic thrust. And this is one of the primary reasons why auditing works. The auditor's dynamic thrust plus the pre-clear's dynamic thrust are greater than the force in the pre-clear's bank. So when they join forces against the reactive mind, it gives up its engrams.
And, basically...
The target is the engram, not the pre-clear. If you attack or criticize or doubt your pre-clear, or in any way seem to side against her, you're turning your dynamic thrust against her.
Honey, I think you're imagining things. I don't think your mother would do that.
Don't tell me what she did. You weren't there.
This allows the pre-clear's engram bank to overwhelm her. And instead of attacking the engram, she'll be attacking you.
You are the worst auditor ever.
Almost anything that goes wrong in a session can be traced back to this serious mistake.
Don't buy it, that's all. I don't feel like it's an actual...
The only thing which resists is the engram. If your pre-clear swears or moans or weeps or pleads, those are engrams talking, not the basic personality of the pre-clear.
I don't know. I can't hear what he's saying. You know what? I don't want to do it anymore.
Just tell me what you see. It's not that hard.
So the moment you, the auditor, make the mistake of thinking that the pre-clear herself is resisting, you've made a fundamental and costly error.
I told you I don't want to do this anymore. I quit.
Don't yell at me. I'm trying to help. You're the one that's not trying.
I am absolutely trying. You're just...
There's only one way that a therapy can be thoroughly, completely upset, and that's by a deviation from the auditor's code. This can't be stressed enough. That's why the auditor's code is so vitally important. It's the code of conduct that every auditor must follow if you want to get results. No pre-clear will respond to an auditor who does not adhere to this code. Let's take a look at it point by point. The auditor should be courteous in his treatment of all pre-clears. To be courteous means to be polite, respectful, and considerate.
Have a seat. Thank you. Thanks.
Being courteous shows that you respect your pre-clear and your position as an auditor.
Great. Are you ready to get started?
Yeah, I guess so.
The auditor should be kind. No matter what your pre-clear says, never get angry with him or be cruel or antagonistic in any way.
Okay, please continue.
I can't even see where I'm at. Are you sure we're doing this right? Yeah, I think you made a mistake.
Okay, you're doing fine. Please continue. Are there any smells there?
Just remember, the engram is resisting, not your pre-clear.
Dried leaves.
The auditor should be quiet during therapy. Don't use any more words than are absolutely necessary during a Dianetics session.
I hit my front teeth right on the concrete.
Wow. Hey, that happened to me once, too. You're not going to believe this, but let me tell you the story. I'm flying down this hill, and all of a sudden, I go right over my handlebars, and my face smacks right into the ground, and my two front teeth go flying.
The auditor should be trustworthy. The pre-clear has put her trust in you, and that trust should never be betrayed. Always keep your word when given, and don't make commitments or appointments you can't keep. The auditor should be courageous. Never let a hostile pre-clear or his engrams intimidate you in any way.
Oh, the pain.
Oh, it's throbbing. Oh, listen to me. I've had it. We're done.
I understand. Go back to the beginning and go over it again. Pick up whatever additional data you can contact.
Listen to me. I've had it. I'm gonna knock you across the room unless we end this right now.
I understand, but we need to get through this. Go back to the beginning and go over it.
If you back off from an engram because you're afraid he'll explode in your face, you're not going to get results. The auditor should be patient.
My mom's saying something. I think we're leaving. I'm not sure.
Don't become restless or annoyed by the pre-clear, no matter what she's doing or saying.
Okay, look. This is taking forever. Now, can you try to get through this so we can both get home in a reasonable hour?
If you get angry with her, you could throw her into an apathy which could take many more hours to undo. The auditor should be thorough. Never allow your plan of work to be swayed or an engram to be avoided.
Go to the moment you learned about your father's death.
I'm not really up for that today. Can we find something else to run?
I understand. Let's give it a try. Let's go to the moment you learned about your father's death.
Okay.
The auditor should be persistent.
No, this couldn't have happened. It must just be my imagination.
I understand. Please continue.
No, I'm telling you. It can't be true. It's just my imagination.
Well, what do you see?
Never give up. Keep going until you get results. The auditor should be uncommunicative, never giving the pre-clear any information whatsoever about her engrams or her aberrations. This includes giving any further estimates of time in therapy or any evaluations of the data.
Do you think that's why my mother and I have never gotten along?
Well, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's why.
There are several other things an auditor should not do if he wants his pre-clear to progress well. You'll find a list of these at the end of Chapter 9, Part 2, under the heading Dianetic Don'ts. However, there are a few that must be mentioned here. One of the most serious crimes you could commit against your pre-clear is to invalidate his data.
And I'm trying to stay on the horse, even though I've been stabbed in the stomach with a bayonet. They're firing their muskets at me.
Never question or correct your pre-clear's information. Never tell him it's wrong, false, or imaginary. Keep your reservations to yourself.
I'm falling off my horse. I'm scared. I'm lying on the battlefield, bleeding.
Oh, come on. This didn't really happen. I think you're imagining this. Let's try to find a real engram.
This is a real engram. I can see it.
Okay, please, continue.
If you invalidate it, you'll shake his confidence in his own data, and you'll give him a serious setback. It's a very destructive thing to do. Likewise, never evaluate your pre-clear's data or tell him what's wrong with him.
Wow. That's why you always have migraine headaches. Do you get it?
If you compute for your pre-clear, you're preventing him from making his own computations. He and he alone knows what his data means.
Headaches that you always have your migraines.
Never leave an engram half reduced.
That's it. You know, I'm tired of running this engram. I think I'd like to run the time when I got burned.
I understand. There may be more in this one. Go back to the beginning and go over it again. Pick up whatever additional data you can contact.
Reduce every engram which is contacted, or go earlier and find the basic engram on that chain. And don't ever bring your pre-clear back to present time just because she begs you to.
Please don't make me talk about this anymore. It really hurts to think about it.
I understand, but the only way out of it is through it. Please continue.
Just remember that every moan or sob is one step closer to the goal.
Don't feel frightened or sympathetic about something which will leave your pre-clear happier once it's been run out. So don't quit. Don't balk. Work with the basic personality, the pre-clear himself, and ignore his Engram's efforts to interfere. Just follow the Auditor's code and keep running Engrams. And one day, you'll have a clear. Now, there are 5 possible methods of handling an Engram, but only one resolves the problem. Which one should you choose? Have you ever noticed that people react to the same source of danger in different ways?
Turn around! Get the money right now! Listen, don't do anything stupid, okay? Money, right now. Money, right now. Right now! Get out! Get out! Go home! Go home!
You might be surprised to learn that all the seemingly different ways we handle these contra-survival problems really fall into just 5 courses of action.
Turn around!
In other words, there are 5 ways that we can react to any source of danger, pain, or punishment. For the sake of illustration, let's imagine that one night you're sitting in your living room and you decide to go upstairs to bed. But you discover, to your surprise, that a particularly angry black panther is sitting on the stairs. Now, this panther is definitely a source of danger to you, and he's giving you a problem because you have to get past him to go to bed. There are 5 ways of handling this situation. 5 things you can do about this panther. 1. You could attack the panther. 2. You could run out of the house and flee the panther. 3. You could avoid the panther by going outside and climbing up the porch lattice. 4. You could neglect the panther. In other words, just refuse to admit that it is a black panther and attempt to go up the stairs anyway. Or 5. You could succumb to the panther and hope that he eats you quietly and without too much pain. These are the 5 courses of action you can take: attack, flee, avoid, neglect, or succumb. In Dianetics, these have become known as the Black Panther mechanisms. They're the 5 different reactions you can have to any source of danger, pain, or any contra-survival problem. And they're also the 5 ways your reactive mind handles engrams.
Jessica, what are you doing? I was just coloring. You haven't done any of your homework?
Let's take an example of a child whose mother punishes her by beating her with a hairbrush every time she's supposedly been bad. Physical punishments contain pain and are therefore engrams. To this girl's reactive mind, her mother is now considered a source of pain or danger.
Do your homework right now, and don't make me come back in here again.
The reactive mind reacts to punishment sources in one of those 5 ways, and there's no telling which one it will choose. If she is punished and thereafter obeys, she's actually succumbed. She's sunk into apathy. She could flee the punishment source or try to avoid her, which might be considered cowardly. Or she could neglect the matter and simply ignore her mother.
I'm very upset by this because I came home today and I walked into the bathroom and the clothes were everywhere. Jessica?
Or she could attack that source of pain. But her mother is much bigger than she is, so she can't attack her physically. She has to attack in a less direct fashion. So those accidental stains on Mama's rug could be a reactive mind attack against the dangerous woman it considers to be a source of pain. But as long as a human being responds to a valid threat with an attack, she can be said to be in a fair or normal mental condition. An engram contains pain.
And my mother's hitting me with a hairbrush.
So when your analytical mind tries to contact an engram in a session, it shuts down to some degree, and it reacts toward that source of pain just as it would in life. It chooses one of the 5 ways to handle it.
I can't see anything else. I guess there's nothing there.
I understand. What's the somatic?
Of those 5 ways, 4 of them are wrong.
My thigh hurts really bad, and...
To succumb to an engram is apathy. To neglect one is carelessness. And to avoid or flee from one is cowardice. The actual incident must be located and re-experienced.
That's it. I can't see anything else.
Therefore, attack, and only attack, resolves the problem.
Go back to the beginning and go over it again. Pick up whatever additional data you can contact.
It's the auditor's duty to make sure that the pre-clear keeps attacking those engrams. The target is the engram bank. It's the auditor's job to attack the pre-clear's engram bank, and it's the pre-clear's job to attack her engram bank. When they team up together against the reactive mind, it gives up its engrams. Dianetics is an adventure. It's an exploration into the human mind, that vast and unknown realm half an inch back of your forehead. As you progress in therapy, the adventure is yours to know why you did what you did when you did it. To know what caused those dark and unknown fears that haunted you as a child. And to know where your moments of pain lay and what they contain. Some of the things you'll find may astonish you. For the most important information you have may not be in your memories, but in the destructive engrams hidden in the depths of your mind. There's much you may not know about yourself, about your parents,
Always my fault.
Can't win.
and about your motives. You'll find many reasons why you say what you sometimes say,
You're such a faker.
feel what you sometimes feel, and think the way you sometimes think. And when you uncovered the comments in your past that became commands in the present,
Shut the hell up. I don't want to hear another word out of you.
you'll know how amusing those reasons are, especially to you.
But I've been doing it all these years.
Because Dianetics is not a solemn adventure. That is so funny. For all that it has to do with suffering and loss, its end is always relief. Thank you. And laughter. So misinterpreted were the things which caused your sorrow and distress.
I remember now, my friend.
And at the end of the journey lies the ability to live well and live fully, and to enjoy that living. And that is sanity. That is survival. That is happiness. That is clear. So, you are beginning an adventure. Treat it as an adventure. And may you never be the same again.
I'm 45 years old, and for all of my life before I experienced Dianetics, I was looking for a way to resolve the problems that both real and imagined existed in my life and affected me.
I was actually very introverted. I was always worried about what people thought about me.
I was always going back to these emotional, irrational behaviors.
I was cold, quiet, shy, always upset, just the lamest guy in the world.
It was like I would have to fight in order to do something good, in order to, better my job, better my life. and then it wouldn't stay. It would always go back.
I'm having trouble with my spouse, I'm having trouble with my kids, or my kids are having trouble, and so forth and so on. Well, that's just normal.
You kind of get yourself into a stage where you're like, yeah, you know, everything's actually all right. But really, it's like, it's not. And I think for me, it was just a real wake-up call after having received Dianetics, just how more powerful you can be as a being.
You think that you're gonna go and you're gonna get your Dianetic auditing and you're gonna run some stuff. You really, when you get into it, you run some stuff. It's like, wow.
I was totally shocked. I had no idea that I would remember the things that I remembered, and just going over it, just with that simple procedure, it could, I mean, this was a problem that was like ruining my life for literally 10 years. And just in 3 hours, just gone, nuked.
All of a sudden, I'm laughing about something that I was crying about 5 minutes ago that all of the charge came off of, and now it doesn't affect me anymore.
There were some times where my auditor and I would both laugh, and laugh, and laugh, and laugh, because it was just so crazy how things were being uncovered and how I was seeing things so much more clear that it was just a blast.
Easiest thing in the world. It's so much fun. I sat there, the order to give the command. I did what the order told me to do, and at the end of it, I have a smile the size of a Grand Canyon.
We're walking out of session going, it can't get any better than this. It can't get any better than this. Then I go to the next session and, oh, well, yeah, it can, but it can't get any better than this. Is there an end? And apparently not.
We were just going, you know, earlier, similar, and then all of a sudden there I was being born.
I could feel myself, you know, exiting the womb and coming out, and then, you know, it's so bright, I can barely see.
You never expect to know that much about how you came into this world, but, you know, there it was with all its pains and sensations and everything else.
I was able to experience, re-experience, some very real moments of prenatal.
It was a weird, scrunched up feeling, and then we kept going through it, and I'm like, oh, you know, that would explain a lot why I don't really get along with my mom. But then we ran that out, and then later that day I called my mom up, and I'm like, no, Mom, I'm actually really happy that you're my mom.
I thought for me, it would be absolutely impossible for me to recall such an early incident. But I remembered everything what it says in the book is true.
It just made everything in Dianetics completely, solidly real to me, because it explained that everything talked about there applies to everybody.
I was tired regularly every morning. I used to be like completely tired, and I was like, something must be wrong with me, right? After Dianetics, that was totally gone.
I had this pain in my back that was bothering me for years and years and years. I came out of session, and I was like, wait, where's the pain? No, it cannot be. I had this pain for years, and suddenly it wasn't there.
My somatic, you know, whatever the feelings I had on my knees and whatever, she just went away.
My headaches are gone. I haven't had a headache in years, literally.
I went to the emergency hospital very often. I just could not breathe. Now I don't have asthma. Haven't had it. It's gone.
I used to be so shy that I wouldn't talk to people, and now I'm the most talkative person you could imagine.
Like about 7 years ago, my mother died, and I had a hard time to get over it. But after Dianetics, I finally managed to get over that period of my life, and you know, you kind of enjoy life again.
I ran out the death of my father. He died when I was 6 years old, and it just released so much stuff, so much charge that I had from that I didn't even know I had.
Through a loss of someone that I loved, like I just decided that I wasn't gonna love that type of person again.
A breakup I had with a girlfriend that was pretty bad. I was very distressed about it. And I went back and I found something that happened way earlier than that. And after that, I just felt so calm. I felt so peaceful.
And I could handle that part of my life so much easier without all this unnecessary grief.
Was able to laugh and enjoy life, and things were better, and I could see goals again and futures again.
My whole life changed. I met my husband, like I got married.
The book talks about having part of yourself kind of held up in moments of past pain and unconsciousness. That's exactly what it felt like, was I got part of myself back.
It's like all these layers that weren't me, you know, are being peeled off.
Well, there's a lot of me's who I thought was me, who aren't me.
Dianetics gave me back to me.
You're running out all that charge that you had and all the attention that you had on your past, getting rid of all that stuff so you can actually just live life today.
You can't live in the past, you really can't. And something I took away with me from Dianetics was I need to live for the future.
And it really makes you able to take on the world and take on whatever comes your way.
It's like full speed ahead, charge through life, you know, good, bring it on, I can handle it, you know?
The biggest win is going clear. Things go right around me, you know, it just kind of works out. It's just easy.
My biggest win was to become clear. I became very playful about life because things are not that serious anymore.
My biggest win in Dianetics is going clear. A friend of mine and I decided that we were going to audit each other, and we kind of just sat down and decided, hey, we're going to go for this. How could you build a better friendship than to have your friend clear you?
He was just like totally beaming, you know, and to think that you actually had a hand in that. I almost think that I actually like auditing Dianetics more than receiving it.
Helping someone one-on-one and watching their life change.
You never think that person's going to be okay again. They've lost that family member, and then with Dianetics, they're actually themselves and happy and laughing again.
They thank you. They grab your hand and say, you saved my life. Thank you so much.
Oh, and that kind of feeling, to be able to give that to somebody else, is worth anything in the world.
It just blew my mind that it was a technology that's so simple and so amazing and can literally handle some of the most basic and fundamental things that are troubling mankind.
By no stretch of the imagination, it is that thing that every single person on this planet needs.
It would be cheating yourself to not get the same wins and the same benefits and the same realizations about yourself and other people.
Why would somebody not do it? Because they haven't tried. Once they try it, let's go.
You literally would say, oh my God, every single moment of the way. And it is the most radical journey you could ever go on.
And I tell you what, if you treat it like an adventure, you will never be the same again, that's for sure.